On the other side, I would hope that there is a recognition by government that in this present environment, that's one of the first requisites of resolving the pandemic is working from home, living at home, isolating at home. A home is more important than it's ever been before. And if you don't have a home, then how can you self-isolate? How can you work from home? How can you keep the community free from infection? And how can you keep yourself free from infection? So this is one of the key and most important aspects of recognition I'm hoping is going to occur at a government level.
Introduction. Sean's had 15 years experience in the sector, started as a clerical officer in Northern Ireland, has worked in frontline housing management in London, and has worked in the development and implementation of strategic government housing policy here in Australia. He's currently the manager of housing at Bethanie Housing Limited in Perth, and he's also the State Director for Western Australia on the AHI National Board. He's got a deep passion for housing and a strong desire to be part of the evolution of the industry in Australasia. Sean, welcome to AHI Industry Connect this week.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Mate, the obvious question for me, and I hate to go there straight away, but I am, we'll get straight to the point. How does an Irishman get through social isolation?
It's really hard. A lot harder than I thought it would be. There was a joke running around Ireland that as soon as they locked the pubs, the Irish discovered a much better test for COVID,
right? And
would have a cure sorted by the end of the week.
Right.
That hasn't quite come up yet, but look, I think it's difficult for all of us. We've changed what norm is, what the new norm is, and we don't really know where we're going to. And I think that's what's frightening a lot of people, whether it's our kids who are at home with us who are trying to adjust to a new routine, or ourselves and our partners trying to adjust to working with each other and seeing the work person that they don't normally bring home.
Yeah, that's it. But again, amazing, Sean, how quickly people have responded, kids included.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of pushback from lots of different places, and it's really interesting. Sort of dealing with the family dynamic, I suppose, in a time of acute stress and uncertainty. But that's uncertainty being for such a prolonged period of time.
Yeah. Now, look, I do have a follow-up question. Sorry to interrupt you. I do have a follow-up question, but I'll give you the question. We might come back to it at the end. And the question is, does Guinness taste better in Ireland? So, does Guinness taste better in Ireland? We might just hold the reason why on that. We'll get to the serious stuff, actually. Sean, as I said in the intro, you've spent a fair bit of time in the housing sector in the UK. It's a big sector over there. Apart from scale, what do you see as the major differences between the sector there and the sector here in Australia and New Zealand?
I think for me, it's around the length of time that these organisations have been around. The biggest and the largest housing organisations in the UK have been around for 150, 160 years and have their roots in the Industrial Revolution. The Guinness Trust, Rowntree, well, the Guinness Trust make Guinness, the Rowntree Trust made sweets. Bourneville was a affordable housing development for the Cadbury chocolate manufacturers. So the root of affordable housing is really in workers' housing and has been around for such a long time. And those organisations were doing affordable housing and doing it relatively well long before government got involved. Government didn't get involved until probably the really at the end of the First World War with the returned soldiers. So the governments then lent on the organisations, the not-for-profits, to actually lead the way, and that has been the driving force of the sector in the UK. The affordable housing sector is driven by the not-for-profit organisations, not by government.
Yep. Yep. Now, Sean, you shared with me just along those lines of the deep history in the UK. You told me on my recent visit to Perth that you've also got a family history in the social and affordable housing. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting.
So as interview questions often go, I was asked at one of my first job interviews why I wanted the job, in social housing. And I quipped back that it's a family business. My father worked for the social housing landlord in Northern Ireland. My mum worked for the social housing landlord in Northern Ireland. Aunts and uncles worked for the social housing landlord in Northern Ireland. And my first boss in Northern Ireland was at my mum and dad's wedding.
Right.
And is still in contact with my family today. It's an industry that my family have been part of for generations now, obviously, but something that goes deep to us as to an important part of society.
Well, let's explore that. So, what's the character of the Kelly dynasty that sees housing being so important?
I think there's a real sense of fairness in social housing, and I think that's what it speaks to. Certainly, what it speaks to for me is that it's the right thing to do. We're trying to help people who have been marginalized or disadvantaged by things that are generally outside their control. And it's our responsibility and our obligation as a society to try and help those people. And I think that's why the Irish and the Australians in it are quite similar. We are about a fair go. We are about helping people that need help and giving you mate a hand. It's just the person you might be giving a hand to is a mate that you haven't quite met yet. That's where we're coming from. Yeah,
great call. All right, I'm going to thanks, Sean. That's a great answer. I interviewed Steve Bevington last weekend, and he talked about the importance of people's home and the need for a home. He also referenced the fact fairly strongly that now more than ever in today's situation with COVID-19, etc., homes are becoming absolute necessity to keep people safe. Is that something you'd concur with, something you'd agree with?
Absolutely. I think the house is the foundation on which you build everything. Shelter you need shelter, you need security. A house provides both of those things. That if you have those things, then you can then start looking at what else you need to thrive. But it's not just about a house. The house is the very base level that we have to provide. It's and about not limiting our involvement in, okay, well, here's a building for you to live in. It's about how do we then engage with those people who live in our buildings and find out what they want, and then how we can help them achieve that.
Just your time and your experience in the UK, what have you brought with you coming into Australia? What's the real key lessons learnt as you've come into the Australian market?
I think that the biggest lesson I've learned, and it's actually not just from the UK but from Ireland as well, is that the issues that we deal with are the same. They were the same in Newry, they're the same in London, they're the same in Perth, Sydney, Melbourne. The accent's just a little bit different. People are dealing with disruptive behaviour, people are dealing with family and domestic violence, they're dealing with work pressures, family pressures, mental health issues, a whole range of life issues, life problems that they need help with. So the biggest thing I've learned is that it doesn't matter where you are, everyone is having the same thing. Everyone's dealing with the same things. And if we deal with them in kind and compassionate and empathetic way, then we can do the right thing. We can achieve the right outcome.
Yeah. Steve Bevington, again, earlier this week was talking about compassion being a real overlay for work culture and characters coming into the sector. So that you've just emphasised that as well. So Sean, Tommy, you've come across to Perth. You're working for Bethanie. Can you tell us a little bit about Bethanie and the organisation and what it does and the sectors and people it supports?
Sure. So Bethanie is it's the third largest provider of fourth largest provider of social housing in Western Australia, the largest obviously being the state government. We're slightly unusually structured in that the housing division of Bethanie is a separate entity. It's a separate company, with the parent group being a much larger aged care provider. So they provide aged care homes, retirement villages, and in-home care throughout Western Australia as well. So of a team of about 1,800 employees across the entire group, we have a small but dedicated team of 8 whose sole mission is to provide social housing to those in need. A small, dedicated, very passionate group, I might add, who are an absolute joy to work with. What's really nice about the Bethanie group is that the compassion that I talked about before and that Steve mentioned, and the empathy is across the entire group. Although we're a small part of a bigger organisation, we're a very valuable part of that organisation, and we're seen as a valuable part, which is nice. We provide a much needed heart, I think, to a lot of the things that we do. It's a real visible line for my colleagues to see that we and our organisation is doing something so good for so many people.
Yeah, and is it about that making the difference? You know, you go to work and you see the real impact, the human impact you're having on people and their lives, their families, and the like.
I think so. I don't think there are many people who are working in the social housing system who would say that they come to work just for a paycheck. I don't think there'll be any, actually. We could all earn a lot more money doing similar roles in other places, but we are a group of people who see the value in helping other people, and that value is measured not in the dollars in your bank account, but in the smile of the children, the family's faces.
Yeah, and Sean, can you share any stories in your time with Bethanie and in Perth? Some of your clients and the impact that you have. Is there any kind of stories that stick out to you?
There's probably the one that we're hanging our hat on at the moment, which is really probably an example of how we work well collaboratively within the sector. Just before Christmas, we got a phone call from a crisis organisation called St. Bart's, who work over here in Perth, and they had a lady that had been street sleeping for about 18 months or so, and didn't have anywhere to go. As it happened, we had already spoken to that lady about a vacant property that we had, but it was unsuitable because of some of the medical issues that she had. So we knew her, we knew of her. But when we were contacted by St. Bart's, we had just had a property become vacant that was ready to relet. So because we knew this lady and we knew she was already pretty high up on the priority list, we were able to go from having initial contact with the support worker at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, to have that lady signed up and in her new home by 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this was the last working Friday before Christmas. So this lady went from sleeping in a cardboard box in a park in Perth on Thursday night, Friday morning, to sleeping in her own bed under a roof in her own home on Friday night. And we were supported in that by obviously St. Bart's with the support worker, but St. Vincent de Paul helped us with emergency bedding and a food package so the lady could have some food to eat. We had organised delivery of various other housing items. So really a cross-sector approach to making someone's life better.
And clearly in that situation, life-changing for that individual.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what's really interesting. And it's a really interesting discussion that I have with my colleagues. So because a lot of the Bethanie group is focused on retirement, so retirement living and care, there's a focus on enjoyment of life and enjoying your downtime. You've worked hard. You know, it's a time for you to reap the rewards of what you've sown, which is absolutely fantastic. But when I'm talking about the clients and people who come into my part of the business, for a lot of them, they're actually not looking at retirement. What they're looking at is re-engagement with the workforce. They're looking to pick up work. They're looking to reskill. And that's been a step change that has been embraced by my colleagues as this is a different group that we can help. And how can we help them? So we as a group then can pivot to helping that group in a different way, still helping them, but rather than helping them with leisure activities or education for education's sake, we're now helping them with education for re-employment or re-engagement with workforce, with volunteering, all of those things.
Yeah. And Sean, in respect to Bethanie and its, it's kind of, from a housing perspective, the not-for-profit focus of the business. Do you also buy into this, for purpose mindset? You're a business. Surpluses are important. It's important to reinvest more service delivery out into the community. Is that something that you, as an organisation, concur with?
If we didn't run a profit, we would go out of business.
Yep.
It's what we use the profit for that's important.
Yep.
And I think profit for purpose is absolutely the right mindset. We need to generate cash flow surpluses so that we can maintain our properties, so that we can provide some of the wraparound services that are needed by our tenants, that we can provide our chaplaincy services to tenants. It's absolutely a key part of it. If we don't generate a degree of positive return, then those things will be cut back. We will not have the value add service. We will not have the level of maintenance that we do. Will be reduced to essential repairs only rather than maintaining for a long life, which is cost prohibitive in the long term. So I think we have to do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let me just change tact a little bit, Sean. And again, this is just echoing my earlier conversation this week around the sector here in Australia and New Zealand being not a sector people are leaving university or school and thinking about jumping into necessarily. I think your story, your long lineage of family members in the sector is probably a rare one to a degree. This sector's not seen as the destination for people leaving school, university, etc., and maybe for a whole host of reasons. But what could you tell someone who's thinking about maybe a career in the housing sector, why they would consider it and why they should?
I think that the housing sector offers such a range of opportunity. When I was working in London and I was house sharing with a school friend of mine, and he didn't really know what it was that we did. And I was talking to him one day and said, well, what is it exactly that you do? And I thought about it and it was like, well, obviously I look after the property. That's one part of it. and make sure that the tenant's doing everything they should be doing. And that's another part, and that's all very dull, really. Let's be honest, that's not great. But then we are part social worker, and we're part, priest, rabbi, reverend, vicar. We are a counsellor to a degree, a police officer in some cases. So we play all of these slightly different roles, all for the betterment of the people that live in our properties. I don't know of any other industry where every day is different and every day you are having an impact on someone's life, and such a huge impact on someone's life. There is no other industry beyond teaching and probably medical and the emergency services that would really have so much impact on the day-to-day life of someone, especially the most vulnerable in our society. So I think if it's the career for someone who really wants to make a difference.
Yeah, and I suppose it gives us that good mixture of both compassion and running a business. Where teaching and maybe working in the medical field's a little bit different. It's not really business oriented, but you've got both sides of that equation with the work that you do.
Yeah, heart and head.
Heart and head. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. And what about skills, Sean? What do you reckon? The most successful people in the sector. What are the skills they bring? Maybe two questions: skills and character. So let's focus on the skills. What are the best skills for the most successful in the sector?
I think the most important skill is probably what would be described as the softer skills, the interpersonal skills, the ability to connect with someone on a personal level. If you can do that, you can manage a disruptive behaviour case effectively. You can manage arrears effectively. If you haven't got those soft skills, that empathy, that sense of compassion, then it's going to be really hard for you to do your job. So I think those softer interpersonal skills are absolutely required. And if we look at the leaders and we look around the sector and the people who are phenomenally good at their job, it's those people who make those and can make and sustain those personal connections. So I think those are the most important skills that we can have. Everything else we can learn.
Yeah,
we can learn the process. We can learn how to read a balance sheet. But if you can't engage with someone and you can't maintain that engagement with someone, then it's all for nothing.
Yeah, and for those people who may be midway through or perhaps in the latter parts of their careers, what are the industries and sectors that are attracting the people into the housing sector now? Is it just real estate, or is it beyond that?
Well, there's an adage that we have, and a few of my colleagues have mentioned it in passing and in meetings and things, that when we put out a job advert for a tenancy manager, we get two types of applicants. We get a real estate agent and we get a social worker. When in reality, what we need is both. We need someone with both of those skills at an operational level. And I think that's what's proving difficult for us is to find that right skill, to find that right balance between the social worker, the heart, why we're helping people, and the tenancy manager head saying, we'll know what we need to do this because we need to, maintain a return because we have to do these things.
Yeah. Hard to compassionately evict someone, I would suspect. It's
incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Sean, you've been said and quoted as your passion is to help the sector evolve in Australasia. What does that mean for those people listening today? What does that mean?
I think we as a sector we're coming into ourselves now. I think we've had probably 25 years of development within the sector to the point where we have some of those large organizations who are professional, who are sophisticated, who can make those decisions that are sector changing. And I think it's time now for the sector to stand up and say, this is what we can do from a community housing perspective.
Yep.
From a government perspective, it's then also time for a government to sort of stand up and say, well, we've nurtured this group of organizations, and we have helped them, and we have developed them. It's time for them to now go and do the good things that they can do, potentially without the safety net of the government, with the training wheels coming off.
Yeah, and what role do they play though in that, Sean, going forward? So
that could be as simple as policy settings.
Yep.
So not having organisations adhere to the policy settings that governments have produced. It could be around performance agreements with the government or funding agreements. There's a level of sophistication now within the sector that the governments and not-for-profits should be able to talk to each other on equal footing as peers, rather than what has been and what could be could have been seen as a more parent-child relationship in the past. I think we are moving that way. I think the government, certainly my engagement with the government here in Western Australia has been positive. Their understanding of our needs as an organisation to do things. So it's moving that way. I think it's an opportunity for us to, as a sector, then demonstrate that we are sophisticated, that we are professional, that we are a safe pair of hands to partner with, and whether that partnering is with a major developer or a land developer or a funding body or whoever else, that we are a group of organisations that are able to do the things that every other sophisticated organisation can do.
Yeah, gotcha. No, that's very good, wise advice. Sean, I've just I'm interested, and we can cross the boundaries of personal and professional here. But let me ask you this question: if you could go back to Sean Kelly, the 20-year-old, which I assume, Sean, that wasn't that long ago, to be honest. But flattery will get me nowhere. What's the advice? What was the advice you give the 20-year-old Sean Kelly? Maybe about his career and his hopes and aspirations around his career.
I think I would probably introduce young Sean to the CIH earlier, to be honest.
Right.
So the CIH being the Chartered Institute of Housing. I was about 3 or 4 years into my career when I finally discovered the CIH. And in terms of discovered what they could actually do for me. So I think that would have been good. Getting access to those training materials, the courses, the things that the CIH did, I think would have stood me in really good stead. I also would probably tell younger Sean to take a few more risks. Apply for those jobs that you're not quite ready for just yet. Try those things. Speak up. If you think you've got a good idea, it's probably not a terrible idea. Put your hand up in those meetings. Challenge ideas. If you are working in a team where you cannot challenge the ideas that you have, that they're being held, then you're working in a team that is stagnant.
Yeah.
And is being led by groupthink. So that's not great. So I think that those are the things I would say.
Yeah. And personally, you probably would have come to Australia earlier and started following the Wallabies a lot earlier.
Oh, I'm not quite sure that I'm there just yet. The reason I'm in Australia, my wife's Australian and her visa expired, so she came here and I had to follow her. But that was many years ago, and I'm very happy here. I do find that there is whenever Ireland plays Australia, it is always a slight pull in my heart. But as I like to say, it's Ireland, Australia, and then everyone, and then England right at the bottom there.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear how your son and daughter barracks for when Australia's playing Ireland. Who do they follow?
Oh, Ireland.
Ireland, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Okay.
Well, actually, and I probably shouldn't say this and put it in public, but many years ago, I went to watch a Ireland Australia game at an Irish pub here in Perth. And I went with a few friends of mine who were Australians, and my wife came along, who's also Australian, and my wife was wearing an Ireland shirt. I was very proud.
Right. Wow.
Very proud man.
Wow. Wow. I think we'd call that in Australia, that's a keeper, Sean. That's
absolutely.
Now, Sean, I've got some quick random questions for you, just some word associations, and I just want your quick response. But I know that we need to make a call out to the Kooring Cats T-ball team that your children play at, that you are actually coaching.
No, not coaching.
Not coaching.
Not coaching. No.
Oh, you're on the committee.
I'm on the committee. I'm the umpiring coordinator, and I'm also one of the umpires. So I'm the guy that tells everybody off. Because nothing says relaxing after a long week at work like making small children cry on a Saturday morning.
Oh, that's lovely.
By calling them out. And yes, I've given my daughter out quite a few times, and the daggers I get from her are. It's one of the hardest things in life, I think. Either coaching or umpiring your own children is very hard. Okay, let me jump to a couple of quick fun questions for you. Texting or talking? Texting to catch up, talking to have a meaningful conversation.
Meaningful conversation. Okay, best day of the week?
Thursday.
And why?
Because the weekend's almost there, but it's not quite. So you can just taste it on your tongue.
Yeah,
you can just quite taste it.
Yeah, my best day of the week's Monday.
Really?
Yeah, because
I'm not just saying that because I'm on the board.
Well, I could be saying that because you're on the board, but no, Monday. I never believed in people having Monday-itis, so I kind of tricked myself into believing Monday is the best day of the week. Okay. The nickname your parents called you growing up?
I was called Shawnee quite a lot, which don't really like.
Noted. That might make its debut at the next board meeting. Actually, yes, sorry, Shawnee, I should say. You go for a long drive in the car. We can't at the moment, but you go for a long drive in the car. You're on your own. What's the song you sing to yourself, and maybe out loud?
Oh, it depends what mood I'm in. If I'm feeling a bit frustrated, then anything by Stiff Little Fingers.
Right.
Van Morrison's always good go-to.
Nice.
Quite like a bit of Van. Yeah.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Pie. Any style of pie?
Apple for dessert.
Yeah, lovely.
Steak and kidney for me.
Excellent. Guinness in a can or on tap?
Ooh. It depends. If the Guinness is on top, but it hasn't been drunk, they'll have the Guinness in the can.
The reason why Guinness tastes so good in Ireland, Sean?
Water
quality. And the last thing is, Sean, this could come back to bite you, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway, and I hope you do play along. Can you say "G'day, mate" in an Australian accent?
No. When I tried that when I first met my now wife, and it went very, very badly.
Yeah.
She didn't talk to me for 3 months.
Excellent. Well, thanks for playing along there, Sean. I really appreciate that. I was hoping we might have something to use at maybe the AHI Christmas party or something along those lines. But, Sean, I just want to say thank you. And I just want to just make known as well is one of the jobs that you do for AHI, which is we greatly appreciate, is the work that you do on one of our subcommittees around our membership model. I just want to take the opportunity. We've just launched our new membership model for 2020, 2021, both for individual members and corporate members. Is anything on that, Sean, that you wanted to touch on? Any of the benefits maybe for the corporates that might be worth mentioning?
I think that the corporate membership is great. It shows that you're investing in your staff, but really it's the membership for people. We're about people.
Yeah.
We're about housing people. So I would encourage people to be members. I would encourage people to engage with their local committees. My local committee here in Perth have had a range of discussions over the last 2 weeks about how we can support each other as a committee, but support each other as in our housing professionals across the state through this time. So engage, connect, and relate. That's what we can do. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah. All right, Sean. Well, that's brilliant. Look, on behalf of everyone at AHI and the sector, just want to say thank you for all the effort and time that you put into not only your job, mate, and the people that you impact positively, but the things that you do for the sector, being on boards, committees, and all that really good stuff. So I think on behalf of everyone, Sean, thanks for being part of our Industry Connect interview series.
No problem. Thanks, Mark.
All right, mate. You take care.
You too.